If you want to check out snippets from my own cartoony sci-fi comic series, Smacked in the Head the Animated Series, hopefully crowdfunding soon, there's a link in the description below. Well, this whole thing was an experiment that didn't entirely work out the way I thought it would. On a previous livestream, I told my co-host Steve that since he got me occasionally playing Conan Exiles, I was in a Sumerian mood lately and also needed to do a new comic review for the channel. Instead of visiting the Savage Sword series again, and talking about a comic that I thought I had as a kid but really didn't, sorry, I pulled out the small stack of Conan comics that I have from the main Marvel run in the 1970s and held up each one and telling Steve on stream to pick one based on the cover. In the end, we landed on Conan the Barbarian, number 68, face to face with his greatest, deadliest foe, King Call. Once in a lifetime wonderment, plus Red Sonja and the she-pirate Belit. Belit? So you know how there are comics that are standouts and then there's like, you know, filler? Yeah, this was probably a filler issue. It got better as it went along, but for just being one comic, it took me 2 nights to read it because I was just disinterested in falling asleep. Somewhat unrelated, Robert E. Howard's writing really blows my hair back. Woo! I read both of these books containing the original Robert E. Howard stories, with the third one still left to read. Actually, I didn't fully finish Bloody Crown because I stopped somewhere in the back of the book in the untitled drafts section, which aren't really officially stories. I'm off on a tangent. Anyway, first off, I don't really know much about Call. I have the book for him, but alas, it is yet another casualty on the stack of unread books, comics, and magazines that I have. I always say I'm not going to buy any more books until I put a dent in the ones that I have, but that never works out. Anyone ever hear of Bran Mak Morn? I never really did either until this. Still don't have it. Wonder if it's any good. And during the course of this speech, I just bought it, and also got Solomon Kane for my birthday. Woo! I didn't know this was a thing! If you guys were around 2 years ago for Jurassic June, you would know that Mark Schultz is one of my favorite comic artists. Fuck, this is gonna be impossible to find. Most of this art is in the novels from the early 2000s, and it'd be awesome to have this stuff blown up and in a dedicated book. Man, to have a dedicated Conan book by the guy that did Xenozoic Tales? Anyway, jumping into it. This year, your favorite Marvel characters are going back to school with you on Mead School Supplies. I have no idea how they can possibly teach in schools anymore, to be honest. The mind boggles at all the Wikipedia-ing that must be going on. Of once and future kings, comic slaves. Yeah, you've read it all before. I can't think of a single Conan comic that doesn't start with that famous speech. Conan and Red Sonja draw their weapons in the sacred temple of Ibis as a talent half-human, half-animal, nameless creature spawned from the outer dark swoops down at them in the Ibis priest, Kram and Mitra. The creature's prize, a page from the Iron Book of Skelos. The exiled priest Conanthe screams in terror as the monster attacks. Conan slashes a mighty swing at the creature, which has no effect as it passes right through, as he's batted. And he's batted away.
You glowering fiend! Flat back to the southern hellland that spawned you, but without the page you covet.
Red Sonja rushes in, swinging her own blade in a futile effort before being knocked off her feet. The creature's attention is once again turned to the priest Conanthe, wrenching the page from the iron-bound Book of Skelos. It takes to the sky through, I guess, a hole in the roof, and Conan laments his lack of bow or spear, though that probably would have just as little effect as his sword did. Fools of little faith, this is a time for deeds, not words. What? Are you mad? Take your steeds and pursue the sorceress dog till you overtake him. What horse can follow where a bird can fly? Red Sonja tells Conan to trust him, since he usually knows what he's talking about. Sounds suspicious to me. This dude is freaking out about how important it is that they catch this thing, and then immediately tells them to wait and let him make an offer to Ibis. Ads! Pretty standard fare. Make money fast! Kung Fu sandals! Wonder how much money this guy got for his trunk full of Indian Lincoln scents. Eerie skull flashlight. Atlas body. I've joked about that one before. Drafting pays big! Sure it does. Surfs up skateboard? Giant shirt catalog. Poems? What? Musical setting. Who knew Grandma was a big comic reader? Oh yes, teaching myself guitar again. So the priest does his shtick, and magically in his hand appears a jewel the size of an egg and the color of blood. Seems like it was worth the time. Essentially, he postures as if he can buy their services, and says he can tell they're good enough people that they're not just gonna run off with the jewel. Plus, there's another purpose the jewel will serve, and that they'll know when the moment is right. I'll be honest with you, there's quite a few typos in this comic, like Sonya here saying, "until the demon struck." He also misspelled the iron-bound Book of Skelos later on. Conan gives a bit of the previous comics recap to clue the audience in who, like myself, have just come into this story, because this medium should have switched to a graphic novel approach decades ago, but I digress. He mentions Belit. Belit? I still don't know if I'm saying that right. Belit split. With Conan to go try to reclaim a throne or something after Red Sonja nearly ran them over in another comic. And Conan and Sonya were hired to find the same page by two different people. Blah blah blah, giant snake, let's be friends. Hey look! The demon bird is flying slow as crap and coincidentally along paths that they can easily follow. Maybe that ibis mumbo jumbo worked. They continue to reminisce about being fighting companions, and then Belit suddenly shows up out of the blue acting like a jealous girlfriend. Ads! That's appropriate this week. Oh, it's not an actual killer shark. Rub him. He's yours to command. I'm good. The mighty meat snack conquers the horrible hungries. Oh yeah.
Step into a Slim Jim!
The women continue to argue as women do.
Are you with me, fellas?
All the while, the nightmare bird creature flies into the distance. Conan snaps them out of their dumb argument and points out that the freaking monster appears to be flying even slower now, thus robbing the story of any urgency and slowly putting me to sleep the first night I tried to read it before bed. But they comment that it may be the priest that has cast a spell of swiftness upon them, which really is a hell of a thing if they could still be on the trail of the creature while standing still. The trio rides onward for hours, till suddenly they come upon a massive, stately palace in the middle of nowhere. Red Sonja claims to have passed this way days ago, and no such palace existed before, as Belit muses that there must be treasures within. Conan acknowledges that they've lost sight of the bird monster, and the group begins down the slope. Suddenly, the sound of pounding hooves. Soldiers from the palace. Ads! Take Hulk back to school with you! This is getting a little out of hand. Spidey and Galen? Hang-ups? Who is Galen? He looks like Cornelius. Oh, the TV show. Right. It is 1976 after all. I always find it questionable the level of interest in stamp collecting that advertisers and comics seem to think that their audience has. Oh, look friends! $2 to $10 cash every week. I don't think the child labor laws ever did address the prize-selling rackets of the 70s and 80s. Ah, this might be a different beast entirely though. If you're a motivated seller of our crappy newsletter, you can make $10 a week. That's a lot of comic books in the 70s, but would it buy very much else other than, I don't know, gum? Halt, I say, and surrender your swords to Bulger. Ha, Bulger. Conan tells Bulger that his group would be better off surrendering to them instead, as he shoots them a steely blaze, which causes one man to back off and think that he might get the better of Red Sonja instead.
Strutting, posturing, jackal.
Belit has an internal change of heart that I don't care about, and Conan agrees to go with the soldiers, but refuses to give up their weapons. The trio are shocked when Bulger tells him that he is an obedient servant to King Call and the commander of the Black Legion of Valusia, as neither has existed in the world of men for thousands of years. Apparently, they gathered to do honor to the king, Call, when the palace appeared in Argos. They're led into the palace as Bulger tells them they wonder if this whole thing is some new trickery by Call's nemesis, Thulsa Doom. Correct! From what I have gathered over the years here and there, Thulsa Doom was mainly a foil to Call, and looked nothing like James Earl Jones. Still one of my favorite movie villains. Inside the palace, they come face to face with King Call, once born a barbarian in savage Atlantis, who wrested kingship from corrupt hands. Similar to Conan's history, honestly, if you've read anything about when he became king, and wore the crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. Call asked Bulger why the three ill-clad characters are not bowing in his presence, and Bulger flips his But Conan and the gang aren't having it. Call stays his guards, and this, dear viewers, is where it finally got more interesting to me, as Call and Conan are basically the same character in ways. Heck, they're even drawn the same way here in this comic, one with more eyeshadow. A story or two of Call's had actually been converted to Conan ones later on by Howard also. Plus, if you've been around this channel in any capacity for a while now, you'll know I'm a big fan of the twin or evil twin trope. Not so much the who do I shoot endings, though. Gonar springs from the shadows, looking like a discount Ray Bradbury character, trying to convince Call that they are the minions of Thulsa Doom, and that they should be killed immediately. Side note, it's amusing and sounds dirty when Gonar calls Red Sonja's armor bubbles. Call appears to take his words under advisement. Conan, never to be one to just lay down and die, wrenches his sword free and offers advice of his own.
Take the advice of Conan the Cimmerian, Call, if the fabled Call you be, and set us free.
Call stays his guard once again.
If any would teach this brash outlander a lesson, it shall be Call.
The guards fall in around the sexy ladies, as you do, and Gonar warns Call of the sorcery afoot. Yes, symmetrical violence, the clanging of steel and iron. Conan asks if he'll let them go free now. Call actually considers it, but only if Conan puts down his sword. Volka's eyes! If you know Conan, that's like asking him to saw off a foot. Ads. Buh.
True believers only!
Hey, Howard! We did a review of him. Howard lives! The other Howard, as in Robert E., that is.
By Mitra, it's a bargain.
That's stupid.
That's not how I would have read it.
That's how I read it.
Okay.
By Grabthar's hammer. What a savings.
Customize vans. Isokinetic. Sounds like something you learn about before you join a cult. Look at this. And what, pray tell, is on the backside of this tear-out mail order? Oh, nothing, just a chunk of art and story. Who cares? I actually bought a different issue of Conan a few years ago that someone had cut something out of the bottom left corner. I was a little pissed. The pair fight on as Gonar rasps from the shadows. And jeez, these two again. Wish they would have just hashed out their differences with a pillow fight like 3 pages ago and been done with it.
Are you with me, fellas?
A king that was and a king to be, locked in titanic combat as Conan gives Call one flat bang on the golden crown that adorns his head. Call mentions the loss of the fire jewel it once contained, and suddenly Conan realizes the priest was right and that the purpose for the Deus Ex Machina jewel would become clear. Call returns the jewel to his crown, and ads! The ads have become egregious. Learn at-home karate. Oh, free colorful brochure. Poems. Finally. Wait, again? Man, they're desperate. Wealth and success in the field of your choosing. Hello, yes? I would like to be a successful millionaire at underwater tuba playing, please. I think I have this camera. I think I mentioned this in another review. Man, these people must have been advertising the same stuff for years. Be taller if you wish to know the facts about height increase. For details to tall up, send us money. Only 35 cents. Does the judge go easier on you for false advertising if you don't make a lot of money out of the scam? Banana stamp? What language is this? Some kind of secret government code. Gonar is suddenly transformed into the hideous hooded bat creature they had been chasing across the waste. For some reason. Even Call is confused by what this creature's actual name is now. A sorcerer of the Black Ring does not answer questions, be they put by king or by slave. They are all the same to me, for I have served a far higher power, the power of Thoth. It is pronounced Thoth, right? Or Thoth. I'm never sure. Gonar hurls a chair and cheeses it up the stairs. We're just gonna keep calling him Gonar. Call says Conan knows more about what's going on than he does, and Conan tells him there's no time to say. But here's what's happening, and proceeds to tell him. They corner Gonar on the roof, and this guy just starts exposition dumping like an old Speed Racer cartoon. Ha-ha! I came north at the command of Thoth to recover this page stolen from his own Skelos book. But I grew ambitious and would have used its dark secrets to carve myself an empire instead. For rest assured, Call, once your army had conquered Argos, you'd have fallen to a nameless plague. That path is no longer open to me.
I deserve to be the winner. I was ahead all the way. Well, I'm going to continue racing, and someday I'll be the champion of the world.
And then he starts hurling fireballs, Super Mario style. Suddenly, the giant floating visage Thothamon appears above their heads, having somehow wizardly heard Gonar's plot.
Worthless hyena, you would have betrayed your mission in me.
Now you can make your own escape or die.
Abandoned by his master, Gonar makes for the edge of the roof as Conan snatches a bow and arrow from a nearby guard. Marvel Bullpen! Nothing really to see here, just a lot of announcements. And a strength and fitness book? Is Spidey struggling to put his leg over his head? A Spidey's Twinkies comic ad! Another ad. The real takeaway here is that Spider-Man had a Twinkie hidden somewhere in his quote-unquote utility belt. And this dude is all about them. Should have led with that, probably. I've seen these kinds of ads done better in other comics. Is this even a real villain? Conan takes aim as the women nag him about the viability of the arrow, having an effect on the creature when their weapons didn't work before. Conan explains that their weapons didn't work before because Gonar was fully transformed, and now he's somewhere in between as his arrow sails and finds its mark. And Gonar falls to his death, the page of Stellos bursting into flames. A moment later, without warning, Call and his legion begin to fade, along with the palace as Conan urges the women to make for the ground floor. Alone in the wastes once again, they return to the priest Conanthes, whom they failed. He offers them another job, however. The simple task of breaking into Thothamon's city of sorcerers, and these faces are priceless. Sonya and Bullet do some further making up, minus the pillow fight again.
Are you with me, fellas?
And as the trio go their separate ways, Conan glances back at Red Sonya one last time. And Bullet does not behave like a jealous girlfriend for once, which I guess was the real arc of the story we were supposed to get here. Next issue, Out of the Deep. The World Encyclopedia of Comics. Impossible? Look who's smiling now. What is this? Hair loss? Dental stuff? Diploma? Oh, I see. And done. I wasn't bowled over by the story. If you're a hardcore Conan junkie and just need a fix for the month, I guess it fits the bill. The story was pretty loose, but again, I don't know what you would do every single month to make a comic great and entertaining. I do like that you can basically pick up any issue and read a complete little thing, but you usually have to waste a page doing a recap for the people that weren't here previously. The usual stick of this channel is finding something in these comics that I can take away to apply to my own comic. Consider this time, rather than art, it's more a lesson learned in storytelling. It felt like all the urgency and momentum of the opening action was killed as soon as they got on the horses to chase the creature. We stopped to have Bullet and Sonya drama, only for the characters to keep pointing out that there's no need to hurry. Maybe if the priest's spell that made them travel faster than normally possible was more like, I don't know, the fire horses from Crawl or something, where they run super fast. Then you could run into Bullet, say there's no time to waste, and have the argument from several action shots of chasing the creature through the sky. Also, there's like barely any explanation for Call even appearing, or how Gonar ingratiated himself so quickly. They have one word box saying they had been told by a dying old man the secret of the missing page and how it concerned the Black Legion of Volusia, but there's no editor's note to tell you when that happened or in what comic or what it meant. And yeah, like, they don't even say that Call was under some kind of spell or something like King Theoden in Lord of the Rings, and that the return of the Fire Jewel frees him from it. It's just a coincidence that Conan bashed him in the head so hard that Call was like, you might have knocked the Fire Jewel free if I still had it. It's fine. Comics are a hell of a thing. I have no idea how newspaper strips come up with a comic every single day, and honestly, sometimes they don't. In comics, like I said, I have no idea how they come up with filler issues every month or two. Anyway, the takeaway is make sure your story is solid. And that's it. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.
Don't use any of that.